Start.
Good morning to everyone. Myself Dr. A. Kumari, Assistant Professor in Agricultural Economics from Vignan University. Today I will explain about demand. I will deliver a lecture on demand. What is demand? Various quantities of the goods purchased per unit of time in a given market at various possible prices. Willingness and ability to purchase various quantities of the goods in a given market in a given period of time at various possible prices. Characteristics of the demand: willingness and ability to pay. Demand is always at price. Demand is always per unit of time. Willingness, we have willingness or wish or desire to purchase that commodity. We have willing or desire or wish to purchase that commodity. Ability to pay means, suppose commodity price is 50 rupees, we are having 25 rupees only, then we are not able to pay or not able to purchase that product. Suppose we have 50 rupees, we have ability to pay or ability to purchase that product. Demand is always at price. Demand is inversely proportional to price. Suppose price increases, demand decreases. Price decreases, demand increases. Demand is always at per unit of time. That may be day, week, month or year. Demand is always per unit of time, a day, week, month or year. Move on to next slide. Individual demand versus market demand. Individual demand relates to one commodity or one buyer. Individual demand relates to one commodity or one buyer, whereas market demand relates to all commodities or all buyers. Individual demand is nothing but the demand or general demand. That means we have to purchase the products, we have to purchase the commodities at various possible prices in a given period of time in a given market. That is individual demand. Summation of all individual demands comes under the market demand, which relates to all commodities. This relates to one commodity. Individual demand relates to one commodity. Market demand relates to all commodities, that is in the form of dollar, yen, like that. Demand schedule: various quantities of the goods purchased in a given period of time are presented in tabular form is known as demand schedule. Suppose quantity demanded is presented as tabular form, that is known as demand schedule. Various quantities of the goods purchased are represented as in tabular form, that is known as demand schedule. In market demand, so many buyers are there. So, by adding all those commodities or all those buyers is very difficult. So, we have to assume 3 or 4 buyers are there. Then addition is somewhat not difficult. I will explain market demand or demand schedule with the help of table. Here 4 buyers are there. Price is at each price 4 buyers are there. This is bananas price. At 10 rupees price, buyer A, buyer B, buyer C, buyer D are there. Summation of these 4 individual demand leads to, that is market demand. 1 plus 0 plus 3 plus 0 is equals to 4. Summation of these 4 are individual demand gives the market demand, and so on. These are the individual demands at each possible price, whereas these are the market demands. In case of individual demand, price and quantity demanded are there, whereas price is a independent variable. Q is function of price. Q is quantity demanded, that is dependent variable. Price is independent variable. Relationship between these two is inversely proportional. Quantity is inversely proportional to price. Quantity demanded is inversely proportional to price. Move on. Suppose demand schedule is represented in the form of graph, that is known as demand curve. Suppose demand schedule is represented in the form of graph is known as demand curve. On y axis we have taken price, on x axis we have taken quantity. Suppose quantity increases, price decreases. Quantity decreases, price increases. It is sloping downwards from left to right and it has negative slope. Demand curve means, suppose demand schedule is represented in the form of graph, that is known as demand curve. On y axis we have taken price, on x axis we have taken quantity demanded. Both are inversely proportional. Price increases, demand decreases, price decreases, demand increases. Types of the demand or kinds of the demand: price demand, income demand, cross demand. Price demand is almost similar to individual demand or general demand. That means various quantities of the goods purchased in a given period of time and in a given market at various possible prices. At various possible prices. Various quantities of the goods purchased in a given period of time in a given market at various possible prices means comes under price demand. Income demand means almost similar to price, but it is at various possible levels of the income. At various possible levels of the income. That means various quantities of the goods purchased in a given market in a given period of time at various possible levels of the income. Cross demand. This is relates to substitutes. One commodity is substitute for another commodity. Suppose we have taken coffee, tea. Tea is substitute for coffee. Pepsi is substitute for Coca-Cola. Like that. Those comes under substitutes. This is cross demand means various quantities of the goods purchased in a given market in a given period of time at the change in the price of the another related commodity. At the change in the price of the another related commodity. That means suppose we have taken X commodity, we have to take change in the price of the another commodity means Y commodity. That comes under cross demand. Example is, suppose tea price increases. Tea tea demand increases not due to the decrease in the price level of the tea. Tea demand increases not due to the decrease in the price level of the tea, that is due to increase in the level of coffee, that is due to increase in the price level of coffee. Tea demand increases not due to the decrease in the price level of tea, that is increase in the price level of the substitute, that is coffee. Other types of the demands are there: derived demand, autonomous demand. Autonomous demand, derived demand. These are other types of the demands. Autonomous means commodity is directly having the demand, that is autonomous demand. That is in the case of consumer goods, that is in the case of consumer goods, which are also known as first order goods. Examples are food, clothing. Autonomous demand means commodity is directly having the demand, that is in the case of consumer goods, which are also known as first order goods. Examples are food, clothing. Derived demand, commodity is not having the directly demand. Commodity produce something na, that commodity is having demand. Commodity produce something, that commodity is having demand, that is in the case of producer goods, which are also known as second order goods. In the case of producer goods, which are also known as second order goods. Examples are machinery, tools, implements. Move on. Law of demand. Law of demand means price and demand are both having the inverse relationship. Price and demand are having the inverse relationship. Suppose demand increases, price decreases. Demand decreases, price increases. That is the law of demand. Price and demand are inversely proportional relationship. Here price increases from P2 to P1, quantity decreases from Q2 to Q1. Suppose price decreases from P1 to P2, quantity increases from Q1 to Q2. That is the law of demand. This is having the negative slope or sloping downwards from left to right. It is having the negative slope or sloping downwards from left to right. Reasons for downward sloping demand curve. Why the demand curve is sloping downwards or having the negative slope? Those are income effect, substitution effect, law of diminishing marginal utility. Income effect. Price decreases, demand increases. With the same amount of money, he will purchase the lower quantity of the good. With the same amount of money, he will purchase the lower quantity of good or lower quantity of commodity. Suppose at the level of higher income, he will purchase the same quantity of good. At the same level of income, he will purchase the lower quantity of good, less quantity of good. At the level of higher income, he will purchase the same quantity of good. Suppose price increases that product. Suppose price increases for that product, he has to spend more money. Buyer or consumer has spent to more amount of money because price increases for that product. For the same quantity, he has to spend more amount of money. That means his purchasing power decreases. Purchasing power changes due to change in the price level. Purchasing power changes due to the change in the price level. Increase in the price level leads to increase in the price level leads to decreasing the purchasing power of that buyer or that consumer. That comes under income effect. Substitution effect. Substitution effect, that is in the case of substitutes. Those are Pepsi, Coke, tea, coffee, like that. Suppose Pepsi is having 50 rupees price, Coke is having 30 rupees price. Those are having same quality. Then we prefer Coke than Pepsi. That means we will prefer cheaper products or relatively dearer products. We will prefer cheaper product or relatively dearer products. That comes under substitution effect. Last one is law of diminishing marginal utility. Law of diminishing marginal utility. Law of demand means price decreases, demand increases. Price increases, demand decreases. Whereas law of diminishing marginal utility means our consumption goes on increasing, our consumption goes on increasing, satisfaction or marginal utility decreases. Satisfaction or marginal utility decreases. Our consumption is goes on increasing, our satisfaction or marginal utility diminishes. So, at the same price, consumer will not prefer the product. Suppose price decreases, he will prefer the product. Satisfaction decreases also, price decreases, he will prefer the product. That means marginal utility, price are both are having the proportional relationship. Price and marginal utility are having the proportional relationship. So, law of demand is based on the law of diminishing marginal utility. Law of demand depends upon the law of demand diminishing marginal utility. I will give the quick recap. First, I have explained what is demand. Next, characteristics of demand. Next, I have explained demand schedule, demand curve, individual demand versus market demand, later I have explained types of the demand. Those are price demand, income demand, cross demand. I have explained other types also. Those are autonomous demand and derived demand. Those are autonomous demand and derived demand. Finally, I have explained law of demand and why the demand curve is sloping downwards or demand curve is having the negative slope. Thank you.